Free agency is just around the corner. Wincinnati podcast. We've got PFF's Brad Spielberger here to talk about it. Let's get into the Wincinnati podcast starting right now.
Yes, sir. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow. Time to be a Bengals
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation?
These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time?
Yeah, shock the world.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. Sova with you, Zim on the other side. Ace had some previous engagements, so I'll hold the fort down. Zim, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
Pretty daggone good. Saw Ant-Man. Did you tell me you saw Ant-Man?
No, you went, and then I went the very next day.
Okay. Yeah, saw Ant-Man. Life is a little different without football. I'm not going to lie to you. The kids online have been telling me I'm old and I'm aging. I feel like the Bengals have taken a lot of years off of that. And I'm just trying to fit into middle-aged Zim versus young Zim Hude and trying to make everything worth it these days. And I feel like now we're at the part where now I'm caring a little bit more about contracts. I'm getting more into the analytics. I'm getting into the hardcore adult stuff of Bengals fandom. And I feel good about it, though. I'm getting knowledge, and every day we're growing. Ryan, how was your day?
The day was going good. I was waiting for the show, but I had a good weekend.
You were waiting
for
it
too. Yeah, man, I'm waiting for it. Like when I start putting it together in the morning, like it feels like sometimes it takes forever to get here. And I've been thinking about it all day, but certainly not as long as you with the 3-hour difference. I'm on the West Coast. You said no NFL, are you an XFL guy or a USFL guy? Are you into these other leagues that are starting up?
That was a strong opening, right? I feel like McCarron brought back a lot of AJ McCarron guy. AJ McCarron guy's been waiting for this moment all his life. He comes out there, gets real dotty, doesn't he? He waited a long time to do it because I was watching that game in the early portion of it. And he wasn't doing that, but that last 8 minutes or so was pretty spectacular. But I like the product so far. I like some of the rules, the 3-point thing. You talk about being able to score 3 from the 10-yard line. Think about this too. You get a penalty on defense. Now offense potentially could score 3 points from the 5-yard line. Like now it's just so many different things. I like a lot of that good stuff that they got. I thought I was a Seattle. What is it? I forgot the name of the team now.
I don't know the team names yet. I'm confusing like which league has what.
I'm trying to figure out my fandom, and the AJ McCarron one is like really tugging at my heartstrings a little bit. But there are some teams that I think Bengals fans can get behind. I'm a big Plitterist guy. You a Plit guy?
Why not? I mean, who's not? Raise your hand if you're not into that.
Right. I mean, I feel like the hometown kid. Plitt, remember Plitt the Prior was going crazy for a while where everybody was like, but Drew Plitt, who's not a Plitterist guy? I feel like Plitt could, do some good things, and Plitt's always been good for me. So I
feel like this is a day where Ace needed to be here to hype up his guy AJ McCarron. He was the anti-Dalton, and he would just be so proud of his guy AJ.
He tweeted that. He said, "Man, I'm an AJ." But he said something like, He was like, "I've always been an AJ McCarron guy." He said that on his Twitter. I saw that.
All right. Well, I'm a Brad Spielberger guy. I love PFF, and I love what he brings to the table. A lot of you have seen the article that he wrote today, and some of you didn't have very nice things to say about some of the trades that he proposed. So we'll have Brad on live to talk about this. We're going to have a lot of fun with Brad. Brad's a really good dude. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about it is franchise tag season. So today the doors open. Teams can now place the franchise tag on one player. So we'll talk about if there are any Bengals that we think could potentially get the tag there. And our good friend, Daniel Jeremiah had his 2.0 mock draft come out today. And he has a Notre Dame tight end that is going to make a lot of people happy, mock to the Bengals. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So we will get into that here on the Wincinnati podcast.
Hey, what's up, Bengals fans? It's Mike Hilton. I'm on the Wincinnati pod with Ace and Zim.
And Sofa. I mean, it's okay that he didn't say my name. It's fine. But let's bring in our guy, Brad Spielberger. Brad, how are you doing? Good to have you with us.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Just trying to, make it through the day of Bengals fans on Twitter beating me up, but I'm doing all right otherwise.
Awesome. So we're not gonna mince words. We're gonna get right into it. You put out an article today. There's a beloved player on the Bengals, T. Higgins, that everyone would hate to see go. You have him as a potential trade target going to the Detroit Lions. Talk to us about why you think that could happen and why, and maybe how the Bengals keep him and that doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I talked about it a little bit in the article, but look, I understand the Bengals' approach is not to do this. They don't trade players early on in their career, especially great young players like T. Higgins. They are not afraid to keep guys, even potentially franchise tag players. Of course, like Jesse Bates this past year. Some clubs don't even really get into those waters, but they also aren't really known for extending players early. And I think you saw last offseason, if you are one of these stud young second-round wide receivers, you have a ton of leverage right now, and you are weaponizing that leverage. And look, Deebo Samuel asked for a trade, obviously didn't get traded, but made a trade request. AJ Brown, of course, played in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs because he demanded a trade, got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I don't think he's going to sign an extension early on in free agency or maybe at all. And it's more honestly maybe a prediction of a trade request than an outright trade. But that's why I think he's a person to keep an eye on. Long answer short, if I had to bet today and put money down, am I saying he's going to get traded? No. But if I had to bet money and put money down, is he going to get extended this offseason? I'd probably also say no.
So you're saying, all right, so I'm the exact opposite of that. Knowing what I know about T. Higgins and the family and everything that's around it, and knowing what we've seen about T. Higgins, I think from an annual standpoint, this is the main thing. I don't think the Bengals have a problem paying the Mike Williams money of a T. Higgins, right? But I do know that the ownership group, and on an annual basis, not dealing escrow, not guaranteed, just straight up annuals, don't care. The TV money, like that's in their side. But the other end of it is the history of this franchise, and Mike Brown does not care about what happened with AJ Brown, does not care about a Tyreek Hill at 20-something. I mean, I'm almost 29, 30 years old, wanting to be traded or any of these different things or whatever. A 24-year-old with a $4 million cap hit, I think they would want to go to do that. And if they didn't, I don't think that they have a problem saying we don't care, knowing what we know about this guy.
No, 100%. Like I said, they're probably not going to just give in to a trade request. But, I also think it's going to be a bit of a battle. Look, I'm sure they will make some offers. I'm sure he'll entertain them to a degree. And I think we talked about this the first time I came on. Yes, their structure, they're infamous for not giving guarantees outside the first year. In turn, they do hold on to players longer than most other clubs. So they have evidence they can point to say, yeah, we get that we're not guaranteeing you or fully guaranteeing you money in the future, but we also don't just cut guys willy-nilly. And so they have ways to push back on that. So, look, I'm with you 100%. I just it tied into a little bit of, and again, they don't care about other clubs, what other clubs are doing. But hey, we also know this very same agent represents Jesse Bates, and it didn't matter in that situation either. But, in the article I mentioned, everyone keeps saying, oh, well, they said Jamar Chase said Joe Burrow, so they're going to take care of it. Joe Burrow also begged the team to extend Jesse Bates, and they said, we don't care about that either. So, there's competing forces here. Maybe they can find a way to work it out. I just think it's, it was not clickbaity. It's not trying to piss anybody off. Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco in the exact same situation is kind of an interesting name as well. I just think it's going to be interesting how they navigate, can they pay three dudes probably $100 million a year once they get Burrow, Chase, and Higgins done? That's going to be tough for anybody to do. That's not a Bengals being cheap comment. That's just hard to do.
Right. When you say the clickbaity one, this is the reason why I think this comes up. This is the question that I always have for everyone. Have you ever in the history of football ever seen guys under contract get asked these questions that they're being asked, like going down like Super Bowl radio row and all this different stuff like that. In the history of football, I watch a lot of this stuff, a lot of these interviews, and guys that are actively in contract in Bengals actively probably have the next 2 years of T. Higgins just by default anyway. Have you ever seen it? And I think that's where the clickbaity type of thing comes from, because in contrast, a team like the Kansas City Chiefs have 23 upcoming free agents, but there's no stories surrounding these are guys that potentially could go, but these guys that are actively playing for this team at 24 years old, like not even in his prime, are getting asked about like that. I think that's where the clickbaity thing comes from.
That's totally fair, right? Like you're going to just project your perception of the Cincinnati Bengals on young players, like you said, that are currently under contract. That's totally fair. And so then it makes sense that, fans are going to get annoyed by that. And they have departed, they're signing more free agents than they have in the past. They are doing things differently. Obviously, been Aces in free agency in particular, the last couple off seasons, making a bunch of great signings. So yeah, no, I totally get that. I'll tell you this. I mean, I know Jamar and Joe and T are super, super close. I doubt Joe's camp was loving that answer from Chase either. They probably don't want anyone to talk about this, right? It's your business. It's your money. That's fair. That is entirely fair. You're probably, if Brandon Ayuk, just because I mentioned his name, if he was on the Super Bowl media, no one would have asked him, oh, do you think you guys are going to pay ABC, XYZ? You're spot on there, no question.
Yeah, I don't know if you had the chance to see it. It kind of got swept up in the midst of Super Bowl and everything, but there was like a video that was released that was almost like a prank call to Mike Brown, where someone actually got Mike Brown on the phone and they videotaped themselves having this conversation, asking him about T. Higgins. And Mike was very candid about that. This is a guy that we want to keep around, and this is a guy that we want to see here in stripes for a long time. But the reality is he knows that there are going to be different obstacles, and they really can't give everyone everything that they want. So what I want to ask you now is, let's just concentrate on T. Higgins. What would a contract look like commensurate with his ability and what everyone else is getting in his market value, all those things? If he were to sign a long-term contract and everything else wasn't a factor, what would that look like?
Yeah, you mentioned Mike Williams earlier. I think those are similar players. Williams, though, several years older at the point of his deal, dealt with some injuries, whereas T has been really, really durable and not gotten hurt much at all so far in his career. I think it's probably 22, 23 million per year versus that 20 million per year. But since he would push to, 4 or 5 years, and you're going to have a higher APY on a longer term deal, APY meaning average per year, because A, you're going to inflate some of that on the back end, and B, also just you're able to, or you have to give more if you're trying to control more contract years of that player. So hypothetically, I guess this number works out, 88/4, something of that nature. I would be a guess if I was trying to mock this extension for him this offseason.
But this is the part where I think this is where the Bates one ties into it. This is where, and so the same agent, Meligat or whatever, this is where I always bring it. Maybe it's just the aesthetic of it, but this is how I imagine this will go. Jesse Bates, before the season, the Bengals didn't have a problem paying him annually, APY, the same money as the Marcus Williams ones. The problem came in the guarantee because of the escrow that is associated with that, in that he wanted, it was rumored to be like 34 million, somewhere close to Marcus Williams, and they were only wanting to guarantee like 17 or something like that. The APY portion of it, they didn't have a big problem playing with that because, money comes in, TV money, we just ship it right to you. We don't care. I think the T. Higgins one is not that crazy of a conversation in this. One, because the Bengals value wide receiver position more than any other franchise in probably the history of football. They're the only team that would even think about taking a John Ross or a T.O., knowing that you had Chad Johnson on the team or whatever. So institutionally, they take wide receiver at the highest level. If you go to Paycor Stadium, the biggest banner on the wall when you first walk up is T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd when you first walk in. But I can't imagine the deal would look something like this. It says like 40% of the contract or something like that they want it guaranteed, but the Bengals are like giving pushback or something like that, or I don't know. Maybe his agent wants 60%. I don't know. But I think that this is the biggest difference, and you kind of hit on it. He's 24 years old. I don't think that they have a problem paying guarantees out to guys that are young. The guys that are older that they did pay, like AJ Green, kind of had like a little bit of, down years on the back end of it. But early in his career, I think they probably be off, catch this, probably about like 14, 15 million in guaranteed money. Where would you have gotten that money from? The Jesse Bates deal. And aesthetically, even though I know that they got 15 million to the side anyway, whatever, the 15 or 16 million off that they were in guarantees, all the fan base will look at them and just say, well, why don't you just give him the money that you just gave Jesse Bates? And mind you, the Bengals don't value the safety position at the same level that they do the wide receiver position. I think on the annual if it's 22, 23, sign it up. It's done. It's like, and if it's not, like I said, I don't know. That's just my opinion, I guess. I don't know.
No, I hear you. It does. The positional value stuff matters a ton. It's a good point. They're going to be willing to be more flexible with certain positions. I mean, I think it also will help Bengals guys. Again, Mike Brown cares about Mike Brown, but I think it was meaningful that Pittsburgh, for the first time ever, gave guarantees to a non-quarterback in TJ Watt and then did it again with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yes, it was only into the second year. It wasn't, year 3 or, partials in year 4, which, that's a whole separate conversation, but was still a departure from their precedent. And maybe there is some pressure to go there, especially like you're saying, if you say, okay, we're not going to bring back Jesse Bates, maybe not bringing back guys like Jermaine Pratt, Hayden Hurst, go down the line. If you're not going to bring those guys back, and some of that money has to go into keeping T. Higgins here long term. Do I think they're going to get into the 50, 60% total guaranteed? Probably not. Or the, 30, 40, 50 fully guaranteed at signing. Again, probably not. But if they concede in some fashion and maybe, have an early roster bonus in the second year so he knows he's going to see that money, there are other ways structurally to get there. Yes. Where I think then they could work it out. I do think, I'm not trying to like blame Mulligett or anything. He reps half the league for a reason.
Right. Sure.
They're going to have to concede in some fashion, in my opinion. I just wonder if they're willing to give in one of these areas.
For sure.
So what you're saying is Bengals fans can, stop hate tweeting Jared Goff because he's getting a new receiver that they don't like. We think T's going to be here. We really feel good about 2023, and we're figuring out a way for beyond.
Hey, I mean, that would be beautiful. Also, I mentioned pre-show, I'm a Bears guy, so not sending him to go play with my guy Justin Fields, was some restraint on my part. All right, so it wasn't a complete fantasy scenario, but yeah, stop hate tweeting Jared Goff. I'm sure he's got enough of those tweets in his mentions already.
All right, so we need to shift gears here to the big fish here. We need to talk about Joe Burrow and his potential mega deal with the Bengals. I know that Jamar had the comments he had. We've seen the money that teams have thrown around as far as the other side of the coin, where you get all the bag with guys like Deshaun Watson. What do you think? Where do you think the range is on a deal for Burrow right now?
The thing here is, and Burrow and his camp obviously know this, is with Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, you want to go last, right? I mean, if you want to make the most money, you want to sit there and take the last deal, because all you have to do is say, all right, I want that deal plus, 2%. You look at the wide receiver market last offseason, DK Metcalf goes last, gets the best deal of all those guys. So that said, I think it's in the like $52.5 million per year range. That could change based on how I see some deals come in. Does someone finally give Lamar Jackson his deal, whether that's Baltimore or someone else? I wouldn't be surprised if it's someone else. That obviously is down the road. But yeah, let's say, in the $52.5 million per year range, somewhere in there.
When speaking of the Lamar one, can you break that down to me, like the non-exclusive and exclusive and matching the offers? Can you break that down? Because someone asked a question and I have a bit of an understanding, but I'm not fully like privy to all the details of that. How could that look if someone were to match it, or what is the concept behind that if a team were to match? I've been told like 2 first-round picks or something.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be very interesting because, look, he's going to get tagged by March 7th, 2 weeks from today. The window opened today, but it always happens near the end. But if they use the non-exclusive tag, which is the tag you usually see, the numbers that are going to get reported by the media, the standard one that realistically, besides quarterbacks, you're always going to see non-exclusive. If another team signs that player to an offer sheet, the original team can either match it or they can get 2 first-round picks from that team. If you do the exclusive tag, which Dak Prescott received. Kirk Cousins on the second tag was the exclusive. Like I said, mostly quarterbacks. The other teams cannot sign the guy to an offer sheet. It's literally just you negotiate with us and nobody else. The value for Lamar Jackson, the non-exclusive is about $32.5 million right now. The exclusive, which can change, but is around $45 million right now. So a difference there in the money. Obviously, he wants more than that per year, probably regardless. But I say it's interesting because if they go exclusive, they then, of course, control the entire trade market. They can still trade them, but it's under their terms. And they obviously, I think, would seek out more than 2 first-round picks. And frankly, I think maybe get it if they truly do explore that. If they go non-exclusive, I think the gamble or maybe what they're going to say there is like, hey, no one's going to sign you to this deal that you think you want or you think you're going to get. I don't think they're going to take that risk because I think someone desperate enough would do it. So I think it will be exclusive and they'll just kind of dictate terms. But I'll tell you, I'm not trying to piss off another AFC North fan base. Lamar Jackson getting traded.
Piss him off. This is a free piss off space.
Is more realistic than T. Higgins getting traded. I'll tell you that much right now.
No, I'm with you. I thought that like hit a lot of the news cycle today, and a lot of people had questions on it.
For sure.
So I know that there's this term about in escrow, and that's a really important thing with Burrow's impending deal. Can you explain what that means for people that don't quite understand what the term is, and then why is it so important going with some of these deals going forward?
Yeah, and so this is where the issue comes in and look, I mentioned I'm a Bears fan, the Bears aren't the richest organization either, but this is where you have an issue with Walmart money versus family that owned a football team 50 years ago money. Is that so essentially the rule was created back in the day and it made plenty of sense. It was essentially if you guaranteed money in future years to players, you had to put 75% of that money into escrow because essentially back in the day, they were like, we don't know if the owners can actually pay this. We don't want players getting screwed and not getting their money, back when the league was kind of fledgling and things, whatever. Now that it's the greatest asset you can own. Wait, go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Think about Steve Young in the league that folded. You have a situation, catastrophic event, guaranteed money. I'm sorry.
Exactly right. And it can be a battle, guaranteed of, but if they're not going to give you the cash, you can't just like hold a gun to their head and make them pay you, right? So, so they created this escrow rule and now it's kind of more used as an excuse by owners to not fully guaranteed money beyond the first year of the deal. Because like I said, you put 75%, you actually can deduct 15 million, but without going into the weeds, the short answer is, you have to put this fully guaranteed money aside. And if you are one of the owners that doesn't have as much, liquidity and cash on hand to do these things, you make the argument of, we can't fully guarantee this money because we're not capable of putting that money aside. I say excuse, I think to a degree it is an excuse. And the reason why owners are getting pissed off about Deshaun Watson, the record for fully guaranteed money at signing before Deshaun Watson was Aaron Rodgers at $101 million. The Browns take that to 230, right? Like they more than double it. And it also, I think, just kind of took the veil away of like, now every owner can't be like, oh, we can't do that. It's so hard to be that liquid and it's hard to have that much cash on hand. And Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland is like, nah, they're all lying to you. They're full of shit. So that I think is the issue. And that is going, and look, not just Bengals, the Chargers can't do this with Justin Herbert very efficiently either. They're going to be in a similar situation. And that's how we can get into, you mentioned pre-show, Zim. This is where rolling guarantees enter the conversation.
Because I feel like there's Brad, the main people that say that Burrow, you're not going to be able to keep y'all weapons are the main people that actually witnessed it with their team, with the Bills and the Chiefs. Those are the main ones when I go through like my feed and I'm looking at these teams and I'm saying, okay, the 230 from Deshaun Watson is from a situation where a guy says, I'm just going to get the biggest bag that I can get. I do not care about anything that surrounds me. And like you said, we call him Jimmy Dumbass I was just on the show. They were calling him Jimmy Dumbass. But Jimmy Dumbass says, I'm going to just put 230 over here. I don't even care about the 15 mil that I'm going to just put the whole shebang there. I don't care. That's the part of the hometown cooking that I think Burrow is smart enough. I know Burrow wants his bag. I know Burrow's not giving any discounts on the strength of, on an annual basis, I will be getting paid $52 million. And that's the part where I think that's the disconnect with a lot of people that are watching the Bengals and suggest I understand the Bengals are a mom and pop shop, only one source of income. I think their full value of the team might be at 3-4 billion or something like that now. Whereas you got a guy like Jimmy Haslam, himself, just him, not his team, is worth 5 billion. So it's a very different bag when you're talking about him. And the reason why I think the disconnect is here is because a lot of people are looking at the Deshaun Watson one as a standard. I do look at it as the standard and guarantees throughout the full length of the contract. I think a Burrow 8 to 10 year deal does have 230, but the rolling guarantees are very key because that is exactly what Patrick Mahomes and to a certain extent Josh Allen had in their contract, and that's what allowed them to be able to go sign other people and go sign a Von Miller or go sign all these different pieces. The rolling guarantees, I think initially he'll probably have like 100-something million guaranteed, much like the Aaron Rodgers one. And I think that's the way it, like just knowing what I know about Burrow, I think that's the part where I'm expecting him, whether his agent feels like that's something he's with or not. I feel like Burrow will say, this is what will get me all of the guys around me, and I'm going to get more money as a result of it. And I still will be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And I think that's the part where people are thinking that doesn't exist. But if you're doing rolling guarantees, and then the length of the contract, when we get to year 4 and year 5, some of those guarantees start to come through. And then by the time you get to the length of the contract, I have the guarantee through 240 million now or something like that. To me, that's what a Burrow contract looks like.
So the team is going to try, and every team is going to try to point to, obviously Mahomes 10 years is a whole different thing. Josh Allen 6 years, I think still works against you because if you look at before those guys, I mean, we mentioned Deshaun Watson's first deal in Houston, 4 years. You look at Dak Prescott in Dallas, 4 years. You go back, a couple of Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, 4 years. That was kind of the standard because these quarterbacks want to get back to the market as fast as possible because the market is always rising and the money's always going up. So, I think they could try to push to maybe 6 or 5. I think that is honestly going to be as big of a battle as anything else. But yes, the rolling guarantee structure that we saw in Buffalo as well as Kansas City, where essentially you're locking in guarantees 2 years ahead of you. So even though it's not fully guaranteed at signing, you had this protection where it's, hey, if you cut me in 2024, you're paying me for 2024, 2025, and 2026 on top of the massive signing bonus you probably already gave me, especially for Cincinnati. They have to give these big signing bonuses. So you're not going to do that, right? So it's kind of a built-in protection. That is what they're going to try to do. That's kind of, like you said, like you're matching Watson just in a different way. I do wonder if he's willing to go. Like I'd be surprised if it's 6+. I think maybe they meet in the middle at 5. Unless they do break precedent and give because some teams too, Pittsburgh and Green Bay, for example, quarterbacks were the one exception to their rule, and Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger were getting things that no other player had ever gotten before. So maybe they're willing to go that route. But yes, long answer short, that is kind of the approach they're going to have to take. It's the same thing with Justin Herbert in LA. Those owners cannot do what Jimmy Haslam did.
And you sort of touched on this a little bit earlier. They're in sort of like a race with teams like the Chargers and the Eagles to get this deal done so that they don't have to continue to outdo each contract. How bad could this get if Herbert goes, if Hurts goes, and then now they're 3 deals past Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray? What could we be looking at in terms of, if you just kind of look at, these incremental rises in guaranteed money?
Yeah, so to a degree, you kind of where things are going to land. It's not like you're going to get this massive increase above the next guy. It's more just like, hey, I view myself as better than this player. I've taken my team farther in the playoffs. I was drafted first overall, whereas Herbert was 6th, and yada yada yada. And so you kind of use those things to say I should get his deal plus a little bit. They can try to go first, but it's not like they're gonna get some discount or Burrow's gonna take less just because they beat another guy. They don't collude or anything, but they obviously have an idea of where negotiations stand, that being the agents. So it's not a huge risk or a huge thing to be concerned about. It's just at the end of the day, that is where, and again, this is not just a Bengals thing, but you talk about the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts, this is after his 3rd year, doesn't have the 5th year option with the other players, but because they're so cash rich and Jeffrey Lurie does not care and wants to spend as much money as humanly possible. Like, you got guys like Jordan Mailata and Josh Sweat and all these dudes that are playing on deals they are so much better than because they pay everyone immediately and just don't really care about this stuff. Obviously it backfired with Carson Wentz and it can backfire in some cases, but I don't know. Probably not a great answer. Long answer short, it's not a huge deal. I just think it's worth mentioning because I think if you're hoping, like, I want Joe Burrow's deal to get done on March 15th, like, take a deep breath. It's not gonna get done on March 15th.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you too.
And that, obviously that March 15th deadline has, an impact on how aggressive they are. They've been very aggressive in free agency. Not necessarily going after the A-listers, but going after the B-listers, and have found some really important pieces on offense and defense the last couple of years in free agency. With these potential deals on the horizon, are we going to see maybe like going back to the old style of how they handle free agency and all the money is just hoarded to keep their own, you think?
So first, I would say, like, their approach is the way to do it, and regardless of how your money, like, you don't win by signing A-list free agents. That happens every year. I guess the Jaguars kind of got away with it last year. It's the first time it's worked for the Jaguars in 10 off seasons that they've done it. And you could still argue like the Brandon Sheriff deal stinks, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But
that Christian Kirk one is still I saw the results. It's still a little wild, but.
Right. Well, it's always a funny anecdote, but I do my projections. Go check those out on PFF. And I had him at $14 million a year. I had an agent call me and say, he's getting like 11 a year. You're crazy. And then the real deal comes in, and I texted him. I was like, we're both way off. Anyway, so you never know what Jacksonville's going to do. But yeah, so like their approach has been smart. Guys like Awuzie and Hendrickson on those mid-tier deals has been phenomenal. Mike Hilton as well. I guess for him, kind of near the top of the market if you're looking at slot corner. But nevertheless, like, that's what you want to do. I think they will be picking their spots more like a Hayden Hurst, where it's a good player, but you kind of capitalize on him maybe coming off a down year, and you get some of those one-year flyer type deals as opposed to the multi-year strong deals. But it's not like they can't afford it. I think they could still go out, maybe try to address a swing tackle or even a guy who could potentially start at right tackle, things of that nature. Jonah going into the fifth-year option, Collins injuries, kind of stacking up over the last couple of years. Like, I think they'll pick their spots. Maybe not a Hendrickson level value, but still some, 7, 8, 9 million per year deals if it works out.
I got a name for you, Morgan Fox. You talked about the Chargers. I want that guy bad, bro. Like, I feel like he's the missing link for this defensive front, low dollar amount guy, whatever, but gives me tremendous value. Do you have? I know we're getting low on time now. Do you have any foresight or anything that you think that the Bengals should attack in the upcoming draft? Like, no, I know free agency aside, you got like maybe a strategy or something that you feel like they should put the emphasis on?
Yeah, so I always like to say that the draft is not just looking at 2023. Like, realistically, you're drafting for 2024 and beyond. We obviously saw that with Dax Hill, and they're already preparing in that manner. Look, I mean, I get the tight end thing. I know Michael Mayer is probably being mocked in 90% of mock drafts, and I'm all for that. I think he's a great player, and it makes a ton of sense. But I mentioned tackle. I'm not saying it's some like massive issue, 5-alarm fire or whatever, but there's a realistic scenario where in 2024, neither Jonah or Lyle are on the team. Look, they also could both be there, but maybe if there's a guy that falls there that you like a tackle, you take a swing. And then I would add, they have some depth at edge. I think Asai honestly had a good year or a good playoff run, minus of course the infamous play, but you could always stand to add a little bit more talent there as well. If I'm picking early, take a premium position, interior defensive line as well, and just let those guys develop for a year and get ready for the future.
Would you trade the 28th pick in the NFL draft for Mekhi Becton?
No, definitely not.
Really?
Incredible player, incredible talent. The Jets would hang up the phone and laugh for the next hour and a half straight. I mean, they just
really
look. He's talented as hell, but
what's the guy? What's the guy though? Like, didn't they have like George Fant or something like that start over him, and they liked it? Like he's coming out two seasons hurt. I guess I'm just throwing out like I could see them potentially trading for like a guy. I think they might trade for a guy.
Yeah. Wait. So you're saying, hold on? You're saying the Bengals trade for Becton, or you lost me?
Somebody of that stature.
Well, first I would say Fant. I think is
somebody with 2 years left on a contract. Somebody like that.
Gotcha. So I would first just say George Fant, I think, is the perfect free agent target for the Bengals. Exactly what I'm talking about. A guy that's played both sides of the line that will be cheap because he's coming off injury. But like with Becton, you trade for him, just you don't have to give the first round pick. Like the Jets would probably take a third round pick from Mekhi Becton tomorrow and be happy about it. Like, I mean, he's incredibly talented, but they're bringing in all these guys because they don't trust him to stay healthy and have his weight right. I know he pushed back on that, and he's been worked out a ton last offseason. I mean, look at the writing on the wall. They signed Dwayne Brown. They bring in George Fant. They draft a couple other guys in the draft last year. All the talent in the world, but I'm not sure they trust him a ton right now. And the injuries now are stacking up as well. So a trade for a guy, I mean, I think
somebody of that name, like for me, I would be looking at a guy with 2 years left on the contract. I take the Jonah Williams one. I move him for a 4th or 5th because I don't think it works out. Like that's what I would do to get out of it.
I hear you.
And I would bring back Lyle because I like his contract.
No, I hear you for sure.
I think he'd be the 6th man off the bench.
It's a good free agent class for tackles as well. For the guys they should be going after, not if you're trying to land some marquee blue chip guy. But I could see it. This is a window where again, we're not going to spend like crazy, but if you can move a day 2 pick maybe for a guy that you can plug and play as a starter at tackle, you definitely should explore it.
I would.
One final question for you, Brad. With the the franchise tag window opening today, is there someone, factoring in what the price tags are for each franchise tag? Is there one of these free agents that it makes sense for the Bengals to franchise tag?
Yeah, you see
some of these names down here.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, you see some of the names down here at the bottom of some of the notable guys that they're looking at.
So, the one from a football standpoint would be Jesse Bates again. For him, it would be about $15.5 million because the second franchise tag for him. So it's a different value. It's 120% of his tag from last year, which still, honestly, I think he's going to look for a deal in that range on a per year basis. I don't really expect it to happen in Cincinnati, but he's the only one I would really think is a possible tag candidate. I don't think that's going to happen this time around.
Isn't it crazy how high who's inflating this linebacker number? Is this Von Miller? Like where is this?
Roquan, what is it?
Yes.
Is TJ Watt getting this number that high? Or?
No, that's the thing, is that it's the dumbest thing ever, is that linebacker includes outside linebackers that are edge rushers as well as off-ball linebackers. Yeah, it's the highest non-quarterback on the list, I think. Yeah, which is so silly because then you have, like Tremaine Edmonds is not going to be Buffalo, but not that they would guarantee to tag him. But if the linebacker tag was based off ball linebackers, maybe they would have. That's a pretty funny. Yeah, it's a classic quirk of the NFL. The offensive line is the same for every single position. So if you want to tag a center, it's based on all tackles. Like it's kind of stupid, but yeah.
Brad, thank you so much for coming on, man. Please tell everyone where they can find your stuff at Pro Football Focus or just directly with you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at PFF_Brad. I promise most days I'm not pissing you guys off, and I do a lot of work in this area and have honestly been lauding the Bengals for a lot of what they've been doing the last couple of years. They've been extremely well run, and of course, anything I'm putting out is on PFF.com. I mentioned it earlier. Top 100 free agent list with contract projections for every single guy, done by yours truly. So go check that out.
That's my list, bro. Did you see my top 15
I
out
did.
of there?
I appreciate you. I
just swiped through your whole. I just took it. That's why you got me looking at Morgan Fox a little bit different than everybody else. That's why I'm heavy on him. When I saw the price projecting, I feel like that is the missing link. I'm sorry. Like I got that from you.
I love that.
Y'all have to go check out this list. Y'all have to check out this list. Brad has done an excellent job on the top 100 free agents. And a lot of the guys that held list on there are really, really good targets for the Bengals, I feel like, because they don't carry a huge cap hit and they're not looking for a huge salary either. So it is an excellent list to check out too. Even if you don't want to get pissed off by his timeline stuff.
No. Thank you. And I'm with you on Morgan Fox. They need some juice up the middle. I like that one.
That would go crazy. Brad, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you guys.
All right. Thanks, Brad. That was a good interview. He knows his stuff. He's definitely a guy to follow. And if you're not reading his stuff and you can get past that, he thinks that they should trade T. Higgins to the Lions, then it's,
me getting an understanding of it. I think it was just given more so like a scenario. I don't think it was clickbaity.
No.
I think his approach is different. It's less optimistic than my opinion of it. Maybe because I have a huge bias that I just think T. Higgins is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, 24 years old, $4 million
Sure.
cap hit. What reason? Why would you trade that? And if he didn't like the deal I gave him, I'd say I don't give a shit. Like, you're still a Bengal. Like, I don't, like, it doesn't
Right.
matter to me.
Look, if we were, examining this, if T. Higgins was on another team and we were looking at that, we don't think that they're going to be able to re-sign him, and we would be saying, why isn't that team trading him then? It's just, we obviously have an emotional attachment. We know he's young. We know he's super talented, and we know he is a very big piece of the puzzle to holding a Lombardi next season and in the future. So that's honestly why, we probably take that so personal at times.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, only time will tell, though. We'll see.
Yep. So I'm hungry after all that talk. I mean, I'm usually always hungry, but
Really?
yeah, I'm hungry for some Midwest Best barbecue.
Ace Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it hit, Midwest Rescue is the move. On our way to make it through the grid. Kickball waves is so smooth that you need 50. Ace Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it hit, Midwest Rescue is the move. On our way to make it through the grid. Kickball waves is so smooth that you need 50. Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it hit, Midwest Rescue is the move. On our way to make it through the grid. Kickball waves is so smooth that you need 50. Ace Zim will keep us up on that Bengals news. And when they get it hit, Midwest Rescue is the move.
I gotta tell you right now that song, that commercial goes so harder than Zim's top 5 rappers, like so much harder.
You wish, Ryan. Ryan, one day you have to take them damn Timberland boots off and actually like dance like and have fun at an event. Like, I imagine you just going to concerts just like, you can't do that forever. You gotta lighten up.
I'm gonna put you up on game. There's plenty of songs that you could dance to. But
did you see my dance moves behind the scenes just now?
Yeah, man, you were killing it. You were killing it. Anything new at Midwest Best Barbecue you can advertise, you can promote?
I'm still going with Old Faithful Uno Wings. They changed up the menu a lot of times. So if you're anywhere near the area, please make sure y'all go check out Midwest Best Barbecue. They're constantly coming up with new. They had a Brunswick stew over the wintertime. They came back with like new creamery. They have their own creamery and new ice cream and stuff like that. So, man, every single time I go in there, they got like something new that week. They had a shrimp basket at one point. They do a bunch of stuff, and they always constantly kind of add on the flavors. When I say this, like, I'm not just blowing smoke. It is one of the best wing places I've ever had in my entire life.
I remember, we obviously went out for week 1, and that was on our itinerary to head out there. And the Ubers to Midwest Best Barbecue from downtown were $50 each way.
Yeah, they don't like it. Don't like it.
So maybe someone can give us a ride next time, and I'd love to go down. I'm still dying to try.
You know what's so crazy? At the tailgate, though, a lot of those tailgates, though, they cater a lot of it. The Bengals Gyms tailgates. Midwest was there for a bunch of them. So I want to say that Dolphins game, I got there pretty early at the tailgate. Mm-hmm. Midwest, they had some pulled chicken or pulled pork there too. They had they got a bunch of stuff. Their ribs, they had shipped me some stuff one time before. I mean, bro, I had a whole party off that. It was amazing. So
awesome. Well, visit Midwest Best Barbecue and Creamery if you are in the area. We promise you won't be disappointed. All right. So we got to talk about this mock draft that Daniel Jeremiah put out. I think most Bengals fans are kind of hoping for, Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer, who DJ has going with the 28th overall pick to Cincinnati. He's the local kid coming home. It's not quite Sam Hubbard, but it's very close. And that's his favorite team. Joe Burrow's his favorite player. It seems like the perfect fit. Is it the perfect fit for you, Zim?
100%. We gotta ask Ace when he comes on because he's not a big mayor guy at all. I don't know if Ace just
better.
Get out of here, like, bro. Like, I don't know. I swear to God, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like he's just trolling, or he's just going to create another Panay Sewell. Because I cannot believe every single
Civil War status,
bro. I'm telling you, I can't believe every single time like there's a guy like Michael Mayer. To me, is the guy. And for people that's saying that he might not be there, I'm gonna just go through this. Starting with the 18th pick, I can't see a team picking him no earlier than that. Even if I went 17, Pittsburgh, they already got a tight end. Number 18, Detroit. That's the first team that I think would entertain it, right?
Right. They traded Hawkinson.
Then next, Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a sell. They need so many other things. Tight end is a luxury pick to them. Seattle Seahawks is a one that I think they could. No, they got Fant.
They have. Yep.
Dolphins lost their pick. Chargers, realistic because they might not get back Everett or something right there, right?
Right.
All right, but check this out.
Plays.
This is where it gets real interesting. Baltimore, not happening. They
draft every tight end that ever comes out. That's all they do is draft tight ends.
They drafted 100 tight ends. Minnesota, they got TJ Hawkinson. Jacksonville is supposed to re-sign Evan Ingram. Giants have Bellinger. Maybe that's a team. Dallas is supposed to re-sign Dalton Schultz as well too. Maybe they don't. Maybe that will be a team. Buffalo Bills already have their tight end, and then it's the Bengals. So a lot of people are saying like he won't be there. I have a hard time believing that Michael Mayer would go to one of these teams and he doesn't test high. Like if he's going to probably run like a 4.7, and if people haven't really paid attention to what he's doing, he runs routes really well, but he's probably the best blocking tight end in the draft as well. So there's going to be a huge demographic that says, "Well,
so is he Grunk-ish?
Fryer Moofish, tight end, red zone-ish, all these different things like that." So when you're talking about like, hey, this is what this guy offers, I think you got to understand from a blocking standpoint, being able to have guys get one-on-one matchups at tight end or whatever. Like there are all these different things that have to happen for you to get the right guy. And I feel like he's that. If it's just a guy that you're looking at the tight end position that's super athletic, that can catch and stuff like that, all those guys I still think will still be around like round 2, like some of those guys. How about that? Because then you'll start looking at the Laportas and all these other guys. And I'm not married to Mayer. I'm just a big Mayer guy because I feel like he fills in exactly what they need in the most decimated room in the whole entire.
Sure. I mean, there's no warm bodies in that room right now. And obviously free agency will happen before the draft. So we'll see what happens with Hayden Hurst, with, any other names, anyone else they potentially bring back or go after. It'll be interesting to see. For me, I'm falling in love with these the top 3 tackles. Like, I know it's so rare. They never do it, but man, don't you think it's worth like moving up and getting one of these like elite tackles? These top 3 guys are going to go in the top 20. No question. But if somebody slides and they're like at 21 to move down 7 spots, I mean, it may be worth your while to find a guy that you could set up, you could post up for 10 years.
That's how I'm looking at it, bro. The one night stand stuff, they could sign Hayden Hurst. I'm still looking at a tight end no later than round 3. Like, I wouldn't wait because at some point you got to, like, there's a lot of guys that are going to say, well, why you need a tight end? You could just go get Hayden Hurst. But the difference is the rest of the room, if y'all go look at the depth chart right now, you don't know any of those guys. There's no other room on the team where you could say that. At least, like, for the tackle position, you could say, well, I know La'el Collins. I'm not 100% sure if he comes back. Cornerback room, you could say, yeah, Woozy coming back off a torn ACL. I don't really know. Like, you know what I'm saying? defensive line, that's the second highest paid group on the team. You know, like all these other rooms have contingency plan. Tight end is the only room where they just don't have anybody. Devin Asiasi is the main guy. Anybody after that, it's like 2-3 guys that I don't even know. Like I've never seen play a snap of football for the Bengals that are on it. They don't have any sample, no Wilcox, none of that.
Right.
And Hurst isn't the only option. I like a guy like Irv Smith or whatever, but I do think that the Bengals are going to fill that
over
void.
Hurst. Would you rather have Irv Smith over Hurst?
I do.
Yeah. I mean,
I do.
guess
I feel
they
like
both
he's
have
younger.
Injury concerns. But,
Injury concerns. He's younger, more athletic. I know his trainer. Like his trainer used to train Jamar Chase. Is one of my boys. Nat.
I don't know, man. Hayden Hurst is pretty athletic, man. He's jumping over dudes and
I'm not mad at it. I like both of them. I like when I say that the Bengals are going to be active in free agency. I think people hear that and be like, "There's no way they're going to play." Like, listen, like go look at that Brad Spielberger list and go look at those names. Like the kid Isaac, the guard tackle. A whole bunch of like prospects that are like going to be available that are like $4 or $5 million. They're going to have all the opportunities to do that. And they're going to have to do it in the next 2 years because after the 2 years, that's when the Burrow cap hits really hit. The reason why they're able to do this is because Burrow's about to probably get like a $60 million signing bonus, which doesn't affect the cap hit. And so year one, it looks like, you know, Burrow has a $14 million cap hit. Maybe it extends and it goes 18, 19 mil. You still got $30 million in cap space that you can't just leave sitting there. So you got to fill in the roster. If Jermaine Pratt doesn't come back, Jesse Bates doesn't come in, you got to fill it in with guys. It might be mid-level guys. It might be a guy coming off an injury. There are going to be so many different things that I feel like the Bengals are going to do, and it's going to shock a lot of people. But you guys heard it on Wincinnati Pod here. Zim told you we're going to be making some moves, and I don't understand why people think that. Like, I think all these things are going to get done. The T. Higgins one is a tough deal, but I don't think that they're going to be that far apart.
Yeah,
because of their age. The Bengals value age, and Bengals value wide receivers more than any other team in the National Football League.
Yeah, so, you know, I just like putting up user comments whenever they co-sign on things that I say, especially when they use multiple exclamation points. So gatekeepers, appreciate you. Appreciate you. Also, we've got Mike. Round one needs to be a right tackle unless someone shocking drops. Again, we're going to see somebody. There's always a slide. And then there's always this guy at the combine that makes you, you know, take a second look like, you know what, I hadn't thought about that guy. And then you go back and you watch the tape, and all of a sudden there's, you know, a handful of new guys that are moved into the top of the bottom of the first round, you know. So we'll see. Like
right tackle, there's only way you could make me mad at this draft is if the Bengals drew Samples and Carmen a pick. When we're all mocking all these guys, you know, I'm not mayor. Like I don't have no argument with none of these dudes. But the way that you could piss me off if you're the Bengals is if we're on the board and all of these guys are here and all the Darnell Washingtons, all the Laportas are there, all the Kincaids there, and then you just go get some tight end that I'm like, who is that? I feel like that's the only way. Like if it was Kincaid, or if it is Darnell Wright, or if it is the right tackle from Ohio State, they could pivot so easy. People talk about trading up for what? Like there's not like a generational guy that's gonna be right there in the face. Maybe trade like a pick or two up if you had to. I wouldn't trade out of it. I wouldn't trade up. The only way I would get out of the pick in any of these picks is if like a tackle, like how I was just saying with Brad, like a Mekhi Beck, like Burrow deserves a real left tackle, left tackle. Sure. And if you gave him that, that's one thing that will make me come up with the picks. Anything other than that, I'm not really interested in, because I feel like if you came with Darnell Wright or the kid from Ohio State or something like that, the tackle first round, you just come back and go get Darnell Washington and you're the Monstars. And now you're just bullying people up front. If you don't do that, you know what I'm saying? Like you could just, if you don't do Darnell Washington, maybe you go Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round, right? So now you're like this explosive team with the running back. You come back in the third, you still get the tight end with Laporta. But then before you went to the draft, you went and got Hayden Hurst or Irv Smith. So you're like doubling up on all of these different things. Like I could pivot to anything in this draft. That's why I love the position that they're in. I'm considering the cap space that they're in. Like this is the first year where I don't think Bengals fans should be like arguing over like I don't like Michael Mayer. Like Michael Mayer in a one-on-one situation is going to absolutely kill teams. Like if it's like Freiermuth. Freiermuth had 8 tutties for the Steelers year 1. He would give you probably 8-10 tutties for the Bengals in 700, 800 yards in the Bengals just because the threat of him blocking and going out for a pass, like nobody knows because he's the best blocking tight end in this draft. And as a route runner, he's probably the more refined, more polished one out of it. But there are going to be a bunch of teams that aren't going to be vying for that because they want somebody that's super, super athletic, more like a Kincaid or a Musgrave or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Bengals don't need that. The Bengals need a guy that can block to help with the run game, and they need a guy that can help block Burrow in case he gets into a Myles Garrett situation that you can keep in line, and that's the difference to me. They have passed. Hayden Hurst only went out for 15 pass blocking blocking sets the whole entire year. They virtually used Hayden Hurst as a wide receiver. He didn't block. So that's where the Michael Mayer one, if you paired them up, those two together, oh my, that's nasty. Then T. Higgins, Jamar, man, it's nasty. You could go wide receiver early, get the contingency Tyler Boyd, get the contingency plan for T. Higgins leverage with Jalen, what's the kid, Wyatt from Tennessee. You could go so many different ways. And nobody should be mad on that stuff, bro. Like, there's like all these different things make this team. The Bengals have the second best Super Bowl odds. And why is that? Because the team is really damn good. It'd be hard to mess it up, bro.
Yeah. At this point, prior to free agency, that's the good part is there's no wrong answer at this point. You have so many holes to still fill through free agency. So there's so many answers that work at the top of the draft. I'm just the guy that at this point is I need offensive linemen, and I want an offensive lineman at 28. The last 2 years, the final offensive play of the year for the Bengals has been either a sack or a quarterback, pressure, quarterback QB hit, and that's ended their season, and that's cost them 2 Super Bowl wins. So I'm thinking offensive line. Any final thoughts before we get off the air today? That's going to wrap us up. Zim, anything you need to get off your chest?
No, I just got off a lot. I just feel like a lot of people, I feel like, I'm glad we had Brad on. I'm glad that, the week prior, like we've been having some pretty good guests, like being able to give some good information. I think because one trend that I'm seeing that just grinds my gears is that people are thinking that they're helping the Bengals by saying, let's cut this guy, let's cut this guy. You cut guys to get cap space. The Bengals have the 4th best cap space in the National Football League. They don't need to cut anybody. Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, all these different guys like that, they all come off the books the upcoming year. So I'm telling you, like there's this habit now of Bengals like fall into like the pressures of the internet where now they're like, yeah, y'all know what we should do? Trade Tyler Boyd and go get da-da-da. Like you could keep Tyler Boyd, go get the best tight end in the draft, go get the best offensive line. Like you could do anything you want. Any scenario that you have where you're like, cut this guy, trade this guy, it only helps the opposition. The reason why the Bengals had the second best odds in the NFL is because the roster says so. By you eliminating the roster to pick up variables and unknowns doesn't help your cause. I hope you all know that. It doesn't help. Like, you could convince me Joe Mixon could get restructured, but for perspective, he had 1,300 all-purpose yards, right? And this is a down season in games like the AFC Championship game where he was only awarded 8 carries. In the Browns game, he was only awarded 8 carries the first time. The next time we played him, he ran all over him for 100 yards and 14 carries. He ran all over the Bills and threw them in the snow, and their bodies are still out there in making snow angels out there. That's how hard he ran over those guys, right? The previous year, When he was 25 years old, he ran for 1,500 all-purpose yards and made a Pro Bowl. So 200 yards off. You got the DeMar Hamlin game and the 2 concussion games off. He literally could have had the same exact stats as he had in the 2021 campaign, which he made a Pro Bowl in. And everybody's like, yeah, we need to get rid of him. He's 26 years old. You can convince me to restructure him, but cutting him does the exact opposite of what you think, because much like Ryan was saying earlier with the term in escrow, you're taking money away with the dead cap hit that is associated with Joe Mixon. It doesn't help. It only hurts whatever you're talking about, because the money that you would have had to give him is now like the dead cap. You're losing that money. So that doesn't help like we're thinking. And I don't know why everybody's like in this desperation mode. And I'm just like, people got to stop doing it. The reason why the Bengals are special is because of the weapons, not taking them away.
Right. It's a great point. It's a great point. And that's a great point to wrap us up on. This is the off season, so you can catch the Wincinnati podcast on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be here to give you what's happened in the last week, whatever's happening in that moment, and previewing whatever's coming up ahead. Next week, we will really dig deep into the free agency preview and look at some names and specific players. So stay tuned for that. We want to thank the almost 100 live folks we had joining us. And we want to thank our special guest, Brad Spielberger of PFF. Go check out his stuff. It's not all doom and gloom, and we're sure that you will enjoy reading some of that. So that is it. That's the Wincinnati podcast, and we will talk to you guys next Tuesday.
Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show, as always. TJ Houshmandzadeh, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow. Time to be a Bengals
How do you
fan.
balance being a professional athlete and family obligation?
These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time?
Yeah. Shock the world.